This is the Lizzie Post, the Mason City Council. Folks have 5 minutes, and the clock is right up there in front of you. And Mr. Watts.
You still want name and address for the record?
Sure, I think that's fair.
Okay. Chris Watts, 237 19th Street Southeast. I'm here representing the neighbors along 19th Street again in regards to the 19th Street widening project, and a lot of you are familiar with it, but we still have some questions and concerns, and it's too bad Mr. Ram's not here tonight, but I guess I'd ask Mr. Trout if you could possibly convey some of these issues with him. And when they first announced this plan, they actually mailed a letter to the people affected by it, and I guess the simplest thing that I came up with tonight would be maybe we could follow up with another letter to the residents that are affected by the issues that have been expressed to me, the one of 2 go-to guys in the neighborhood. The next one standing behind me here, but a few of them, the blueprints that we were showed that night when we came up to the second floor, such as the poles. The poles were all on the north side. Now we have 15 new ones on the south side, and with a meeting this afternoon, I was able to understand Alliance philosophy a little bit better in regards to why they're doing what they were doing, but they just kind of mysteriously disappeared in our front yards, and we had no knowledge of it. So that's been a big issue with the neighbors. They have a couple other issues that, you know, we thought out of this meeting, it was a very constructive meeting that night, that we would have seen something back by now, but, you know, 2 weeks ago, yesterday, was the rumor in regards to the street closing. When is the street closing? When is the expectations as far as reopening? Last I heard it was around Halloween. The speed limit was an issue there at that meeting that night. The Pennsylvania Avenue, 19th Street school crossing signal was an issue that night that we were going to hear back on. And another one was the Massachusetts stop sign, which I fought hard for back in Dirk Jablonski and Charlie Hammond's day, and we don't want to see that disappear. So those are a few of the issues we'd like to see. Mr. Nelson and Mr. Weaver have been working in regards to some of the other questions we did get answers on as far as access points to the neighborhood. Some of these people, especially that live in the Carolina Place area, how are they going to access it? I'm sure people on our end, you know, they can access the alleys off of 20th and so on and so forth. And then, you know, naturally the mail was another big issue. They're putting it down in the corners. They're going to have to walk down, and they don't have any objection to that, but the way the mail service works, they're afraid that the mail service won't put the mailboxes back when they're done. So these are issues coming out of the neighborhood, and it'd be nice if we could have maybe get a response mailed back to the people. On a separate note, I'd like to thank the city, Bill Stengler's people, in regards to getting over there and mow. This is the first year in the last 10 that Larry and I haven't been over there mowing and weed whacking, and it's been a little hard with the foregoing construction stuff there, and I appreciate the guys coming over to take care of that, Bill. It was really getting pretty bad. So with that, okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Watts.
Larry Solberg, 303 19th Street Southeast. I have a lot of the same issues that as Chris does. One concern I had was Chris and I went up and met with Mark Brown, or at his office. He wasn't in. I believe talked to his assistant about some of these issues and the lack of communication when things were starting and stopping, and placement of mail and things like that, garbage. What's going to happen with that? Where do the people on that street who don't put it in the alley put their garbage? Little things like that that can be ironed out, but we were just afraid, you know, like for, garbage, for example. We put the garbage out on the curb. Well, that's the day they decide they're not picking it up, and it sits there a week, and then, you know, what do we do with it? You know, I mean, without communication, it's going to be a hassle. So we want a little more communication. Also, that meeting, we talked about when I believe it was Michaels is a company that, I think it was Alliant that subcontracted to bury gas lines and things like that. And I had some damage on my sidewalk from their trenching machine or whatever, cracked a few pieces. So I talked to him about it, and he said, well, we'll get back to you. Evidently, it's not the city's problem. Call Alliant. They sent somebody out, and they didn't see any cracks. I'd have to mark them and call the 800 number, lodge a complaint, or whatever their procedure is. And I guess I was under the impression that the project was a city project and that the Alliant part is not a city project. Okay, that's completely separate. Okay. Well, I wasn't told that, so that was a big issue I had. And I just want to reiterate the fact that most of us in the neighborhood do not care for the poles that are there. And I don't know who we talked to with Alliant about what's going to happen on the other side. If you look down 19th Street now, it is a mess of wires, poles everywhere. Some of the old poles coming out, once everything gets hooked up, or are they going to stay there? It's pretty much an eyesore right now. It just looks horrible. And the fact that we were never told there were going to be poles on our side, the last thing we heard was our side wasn't going to be touched once we had the council meeting and changed plans to no longer 3-lane. And I don't know how much truth there is to it, but Chris was talking to some of these Alliant people today, and the placement of their poles, they said, this is where they need to go when there's 3 lanes. My understanding is there's not going to be 3 lanes, but is that plan still there on the back burner? I mean, they haven't thrown the blueprints away, obviously. So we were just postponing the inevitable, or if that was it. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Stolberg. Mr. Manis.
Sanders Savanes, 1213 6th Street Southwest. I have nothing against the 2 gentlemen that were up here to ask questions earlier. It's nothing personal. What I don't understand is, a few weeks ago I was up here and I was told and escorted to my seat by a police officer because I couldn't speak. And when I came up here that night, and excuse me for assuming, but I did talk to 2 council members that said I had a right to speak about what I wanted to speak about. So what I don't understand is how come it's okay for some people to be able to speak and not for other people? And I sit here and I listen to what goes on, and it's like, if somebody doesn't want to hear something, you just stop it. I don't understand where it comes, where freedom of speech, and if you have a question, why it can't be answered. If you have something you want to say, you can't say it. I don't understand why it's fair for some people to be able to speak and not for others. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Manis.
Thank you.
Mr. Weaver.
Just something that bugs some of us elected representatives. People come to this podium at the end of the meeting with their concerns. About 95% of them never hear a word back about their concerns. I think that's probably true, isn't it? Yeah, thanks. There's quite a bit of head shaking going on. We never get back. I don't know what's the point. You take their comments, Mayor, and I'm not sure what you do with them or who nobody gets back to them. And I just wanted to say, Brent, council today, some of the council members met with Alliant Energy and the neighborhood on a request that we had put to you a couple weeks ago and even further than that, and I gave you a personal telephone call about the telephone poles. You don't have to get back to us. We met with them today. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Weaver. Oh, yeah. Mr. Gilbert.
Dave Gilbert, 1715 Hillcrest Drive. Some of this is ridiculous what I'm gonna have to talk about, but I guess I gotta bring it up. This is my city too, okay? And, we wrote a check out to the fair board. They can't even balance their checkbook, but we gave them some money. There was a man that had a building on an easement, and we gave him some money. An easement is an easement. I don't know how you can address an easement any different than it's an easement. But I guess it's squeaking wheel gets something, I guess. One thing that happens up here a lot is, what do you do in your own time? What's your job? What do you do on weekends and things like that? Now, when you all ran for office, that was all published. So I really don't like to hear that BS from up here. Knock it off. And last week, that meeting that was here really must have been something. The meeting before, I talked about dysfunctional and childish. Okay? Tonight was pretty good. But next Tuesday will probably be the same. Now, sometimes we have people in this audience or in a motel that's listening to this city council. I want to come in here and respect every one of you for what you're doing. But there's like a bad apple in the barrel can mess it up for everything. So a good example was the other night. And we were talking about right away tonight. Yeah, I got a complaint. There's a guy over here, got a junkyard or whatever it is. Got about 12 bicycles or whatever it is on city sidewalk. You can get it removed.
Hey, Mr. Gilbert. Anybody else? All right. We're adjourned. Thank you.